Guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. How you guys doing today? Today we have a big video in store for you guys. We're going to be talking about broken cards inside Clash Royale. We're going to list 11 cards that I think desperately need a rework, a nerf, or a buff. I want to hear from you guys. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? But let me start off by saying that I really am a huge fan of the meta overall right now. But of course, we can always hope for improvements. So in today's video, we will go ahead and talk about those cards specifically. Now, what are broken cards? Basically, cards that provide too much value given their elixir cost, or provide cards that provide too little value and they're just more easily boxed out by other more OP cards in the meta. Now, what about the meta? Everything works right now except for kinda Graveyard in terms of win conditions. So Hog, Giant, Expo, Mortar, Balloon, Miner, Hound, Golem, Bait, you name it. It's a very diverse meta right now. I think everybody is pretty happy in the meta. I think a lot of us are just looking forward to the October update to see additional ways we can use these cards in these decks in the big new feature. More on that hopefully soon. I'm going to Finland next week, going for quite a while. I don't know what they have in store for me, but we'll have to see. Hopefully I can report back on that soon. Anyway, not on the list today are going to be Mega Knight and PEKKA, surprisingly, because I think that Mega Knight and PEKKA actually complement one another in this current meta. Mega Knight does have the highest win rates, but not everybody has unlocked him yet, so I will not be including Mega Knight right now. I generally think that expensive cards are easier to balance inside the game. Why? Because they're more high risk, high reward. A 7 elixir card such as Mega Knight can absolutely destroy your opponent's tower in supporting troops, or you can result in a very bad, or it can result in a very bad elixir trade for you being the Mega Knight player once your opponent counters him with just an Ice Golem in bats. That's a -4 trade for those of you guys at home who are bad at math. So, the PEKKA is a beast right now. She is incredible in so many decks, and I love her that way. To me, she is like the spider right now. She's an insect, meaning she's kind of a problem, but she also catches so many other insects, so we put up with her. And basically, that's my way of an awful analogy. That's my way of saying that the PEKKA is good for the game because she keeps beatdown in check, she keeps bridge spam in check, she keeps the Mega Knight in check. So Golem, Giant, bridge spam, Battle Ram, Mega Knight. I mean, PEKKA shuts all that down. I think a healthy, big, beefy control card such as the PEKKA is actually good to have as a powerful card inside the game. So let's start with the two cards that are in every single episode. We're not going to spend a lot of time on these two. I'm sure you can guess. It's the Royal Giant and the Elite Barbarians. Those of you who watched my free-to-play video a couple days ago with my Goblin Barrel mirror deck, which I still love, by the way, if you want to check that out in your free-to-play player, looking for a ladder version of Bait, check that video out. It's a lot of fun. But you guys know, I got really frustrated in that video because I kept going against really over-leveled Elite Barbarians. It is so annoying, and I know a lot of you guys out there feel my pain. Something ought to be done, Supercell, about these Elite Barbarians and about the Royal Giant. Unfortunately, it's the opinion of yours truly that what needs to be done is a buff. Yeah, I said it. I think that Elite Barbarians and Royal Giant both need a buff. However, you can't do that because they're commons, they can be over-leveled, and it gets to be really annoying problem. So again, I will echo my previous sentiments that the Elite Barbarians and the Royal Giant need to be converted to rares. Players need to have the benefit of conversion, meaning when you're converting to the commons to the rares, they should be rounded up in levels. That way no one feels ripped off. Of course, that won't immediately solve the problem because then there'll be over-leveled rares on ladder Elite Barbarians and Royal Giant, but after a couple balance cycles go by, everything will start to even out again, and then, alas, Royal Giants and Elite Barbarians won't be a problem anymore, and at that time, in a couple months from now, or from when they do this conversion, then you can buff them again, and maybe they'll be viable at tournament level standards. I think they're interesting cards that ought to have a place in the game other than annoying and frustrating everybody on ladder. Moving on to the buffs. Well, you know what, we're just going to go down the list today. We're not going to organize them by buffs and nerfs. We're going to switch things up in today's video. So a buff to the Spear Goblins. I think that we should, poor Spear Goblins, I mean, you're starting to see a little bit of Spear Goblins, but with the rise of bats, it's almost like they have another contender at their elixir cost level, and bats are everywhere right now, and Spear Goblins, well, they're suffering. I would buff them. I would buff the Spear Goblins. That would also give a little bump to the Goblin Gang, and I think that the Goblin Gang needs a little bump, just a little bit. Goblin Gang's still a great card, but no editing here, guys. We did remove a Spirit Goblin from the Goblin Gang in the last balance changes, or the one before that. I think it's okay to give a little bit of buff to a Spirit Goblins in general. The Goblin Gang still won't be at their previous form of power that they were inside the game. Tesla. So this is interesting. I have a revised opinion on Tesla. During the Supercell AMA with a Clash Royale team, they said they don't want to add any interesting new mechanics to the Tesla because it's a common card. And the fact that it's hidden, which doesn't really help it that much, but the hidden aspect, it prevents it from like getting attacked by an errant fireball randomly out of nowhere. But the fact that it's hidden is unique enough for a common card, and they don't want to add a zap effect. They don't want to add a retargeting effect, and they don't want to add an extra ray to the Tesla. Those were three ideas that I loved about the Tesla. So I would either convert it to a rare. That way we have an excuse to add another component to the card, make it a little bit more complex, because remember guys, Supercell balances cards, and they make cards not according to rarity and power synergy, but rather due to complexity and rarity synergy, meaning that a legendary card ought to be more complex than a epic, which ought to be more complex than, of course, a rare and then a common. So because of that, my new recommendation for Tesla would be to increase the speed from 0.8 to 0.6, so it would be a very fast shooting Tesla, and then you decrease the DPS. It will help much more against swarm targets and a little bit less against tanks, but no one uses it against tanks as is. They use a cannon or an Inferno Tower or even Tornado. So I would, that would be my recommendation. Of course, another recommendation is just a slight nerf and drop the cost to 3, putting it on par with the Tombstone and the Cannon at that elixir range. So that would be my recommendation for Tesla. Fix Tesla, Supercell, please. Heal. Remove it from the game. Okay, moving on. No, seriously, heal. In hindsight, I wonder if the Clash Royale team regrets adding heal to the game in their heart of hearts, because the spell was only used in 1 or 2 decks with Spam or 3 Musketeers, and then when they nerfed it, now it's used in no decks. So you might as well just remove it. And you know, I'm only half serious here. I'm half joking, right? Because I don't think they're going to remove a card from the game. However, heal is virtually unused right now. You can check www.statsroyale.com to get any of these cards, win rates and usage rates through every single arena level, and also in challenges. This is where I get my information for videos like these, so I'm not just speaking anecdotally to you guys. So I would go ahead and probably rework heal. I'd probably reduce the cost to 2 and make it more like Rage. Well, not like Rage, I guess, but just making it more unique or different. I think that a rework is really what we need for heal, if anything. I would reduce the cost to 2, make the duration instant, and make the heal dramatically less. So that would be my recommendation for heal. I don't know if people would still use it, but it would be a faster cycle card, and you could use it when, you know, I don't know, when you think you need that instant boom boost of power, either defensively or offensively. At this point, I'm at a loss with heal, guys. I don't think it's a good card. I don't know what they're going to do with it. One card that we haven't talked about in all our balance changes discussions is the Spear Goblin Hut, or the Goblin Hut. Now, I think that it's ridiculous that it costs 5 compared to the furnace, which I feel is better than the Goblin Hut. I think that the furnace costs 4, so why not just make it cost 4 and then everybody's happy? Is that too much value for 4? Will it bring spawner decks back to the game? If it does, then is that necessarily a bad thing? A lot of people got annoyed by spawner decks a year and a half ago when the meta was dominated by them, but at the end of the day, they were pretty easy to counter too. And look at it now. We have so many more splash cards in the game than we did back then, like Executioner, like Mega Knight, like Bowler, right? There's a lot more. So I think that, hey, buffing the spawner cards should be fine, I think, you know? So I would buff the Spear Goblin Hut. I would either make it produce more Spear Goblins for a longer period of time with more HP, or I would just go ahead and make it cost 4, and maybe, if necessary, give it just one less Spear Goblin total, so a very slight nerf, but overall a big buff by reducing the elixir cost. So that would be my recommendation for Goblin Hut. Cannon Cart, man, I don't get everything right here on CWA, guys, but I got Cannon Cart right. I said the card was going to be garbage, and I think it is trash. No offense to you Cannon Cart lovers out there. I'm sure there's a few of you, and the truth of the matter is it's kind of a high skill cap card because it's very difficult to use. It's difficult to predict. It's difficult to use strategically. Half the time your cannon ends up being absolutely useless, wasted either on your side of the arena, on the bridge, or out of tower range of your opponent's side of the arena. So my fix for Cannon Cart would be to make it more of a support troop rather than just a strange hybrid card. Cannon Carts, to me, and this goes against Clash of Clans and Clash Royale philosophy, ought to be slow. You know, you think back to the Middle Ages, and Cannon Carts were slow. They were very clunky units that you had to roll around, and they were very heavy. I can't believe that the movement speed is fast. A Cannon Cart that moves that fast, to me, is unnatural and weird and strange. So I think it should be slow. I think this would actually provide a buff to the Cannon Cart because you could use it as a support troop. I also think that the Cannon Cart, we should experiment, or Supercell should experiment, with making it so that it attracts defensive targeting troops from the get-go, not just when it becomes a cannon. That way you could use it in the opposite lane to kite a giant or a hog rider or something to the other side of the arena, and then you could maybe even mount an offensive push after that if you were to support your Cannon Cart as well. So if that was the case, it would have to also be able to fire while it's moving. So that moves into my crazy idea for Cannon Cart, is if you want to keep it at 5, you should let it fire while it's moving. I want to say that no troop in the game has that ability right now. Am I wrong? I'm sure there is one, but I think every troop right now stops to fire. No matter what it is, it stops. Even the melee troops, they stop, you know, briefly, and then they move. I think adding maybe just that one dynamic to Cannon Cart is that it can move and fire at the same time. It would be the perfect kiting troop, and it was slow moving. That's a lot of changes, maybe pick and choose, but I do think that at the end of the day that something needs to change with the Cannon Cart. The Graveyard. What happened to Graveyard? It was amazing, and then it got nerfed to oblivion. Some people still use it. It's still a unique and interesting win condition, but let's face it, the pros hated Graveyard because of the RNG, because of the unpredictable nature of it, a lot of luck involved as to where those skeletons spawn. One Graveyard push could do 1,000 damage, the next Graveyard push could do 400 damage. So they fixed that by nerfing it. I think a rework is still in order here. If it was me, I would buff it back up to 17 skeletons, and I would put the duration back to 10 seconds instead of 15 and 9. Right now it can be hard countered by a poison for a 1 elixir advantage. That's just not right now. That's just not right. And plus with the popularity surge of bats and Ice Wizard to an extent, I think that there's just so much working against Graveyard right now. I think it should be back to the way it was and just fix the RNG nature of the card. Everybody will be happy, and finally Graveyard will have a nice place inside the game again. Sparky. Starting to see a little bit more Sparky, but not enough for my liking. So it's great that we're starting to see here, but think about it. What's the most popular spell right now in the game? Zap. There's a lot of Zap everywhere. What's the most popular troop in the game? Or at least the second most popular? actually, the most popular, E-Wiz. E-Wiz and Zap are everywhere, so I still think a reduction in charge time for Sparky is what she needs to become more than just a trash can on wheels. Team Sparky, love her. E-Wiz. E-Wiz is just so OP. The last two cards we're going to be talking about today are just so strong right now that I think that something just ought to be done to give them slight nerfs. I like that they're strong. E-Wiz and Bandit. I like that they're really strong. However, I do think that it's boxing out other cards, such as my Ice Wiz, who I love so dearly. I think that we need to take the E-Wiz and Musketeer to an extent. E-Wiz is just so versatile, so strong defensively, and then has to be accounted for on the counter attack as well. I think the E-Wiz just needs another very slight HP nerf or damage nerf like we saw last update, just to help other cards contend on that same level. The E-Wiz provides so much more value than a Musketeer at 4 elixir that it's hard to make the case, except for maybe Hog Cycle decks, that you'd ever want to use a Musketeer in favor of the E-Wiz. And remember, Supercell doesn't want legendary cards to be more powerful than rare or common or epic cards. They want it just to be more complex. So we've achieved the complexity in the E-Wiz when he enters into the arena. We don't need him to be incredibly more powerful as well. Bandit, second highest win rate in the game at 55.3 on ladder, 63.9% win rate on challenges. That is dramatically high. For those of you who don't know win rates, usually a good win rate would be around 52 to 55%. 63.9% win rate for the Bandit in challenges means that she's just a little bit too powerful. The Bandit's charge does almost as much damage as 2 Musketeer hits or 1 fireball, almost as much. I think that dash damage just needs to be slightly reduced, not giving her quite enough value on the dash or in the pocket. I actually do like that she was buffed so she gets into her dash sooner. However, I think that maybe just a little damage reduction will help curb that incredibly high win rate. I do love Bandit though. So guys, do you agree? Do you disagree with me, with my opinions on all those cards? I want to hear from you in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Huge shout out to my YouTube partner, Bren Chong. Make sure you support him. Also, information in the description below. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and as always, take care, guys.